Hey cuties, before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the crackling sound my mic is making. I obviously didn't know this until after the fact, so I tried to mitigate it as best as possible. I don't think it's terrible, but just know that you will hear crackle every once in a while. Verity was published in 2018, but it wasn't until about a year ago that I started hearing about this novel. What's your favorite Colleen Hoover book? Verity. What's your favorite thriller? Verity. What book do you recommend I read? Verity. It seemed that no matter what I did, I couldn't escape Verity. So I finally read it. Before I begin, I want to give a spoiler and content warning. I'm assuming that if you are watching this video, you've already read the book, but if you haven't and you clicked on this video hoping to discern whether or not you should read this book, here's how I'll answer the title of the video. No, but it's close. Now go read the book and come back once you're finished to find out why I think that. This video in no way is meant to discourage how you feel about the book. I'm simply sharing my very unprofessional opinion, and I will not be offended if you take everything I say with a grain of salt. Alright y'all, spoiler portion of this video begins now, so click away if you do not want to be spoiled. Verity follows struggling author Lowen Ashley, and boy, is she really struggling when the book begins. I hear the crack of his skull before the spattering of blood reaches me. That's literally the opening line of the book. Our anxious protagonist watches this man get his skull crushed beneath the truck, which, as you can imagine, does wonders for her mental health. I mention that because it actually has no lasting effects. So Lowen, who was on her way to this very important meeting, is now covered in blood, and she has to get this blood off of her because she doesn't want to show up to this very important meeting covered in blood. I mean, did this guy really have to die in front of her? This is kind of rude if you ask me. Fortunately for Lowen, though, she runs into a man, a handsome one at that, and he helps her to a bathroom where she removes her shirt, and he gives her his, because there are still some good people left in New York City.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, he doesn't live in New York.
What?
Yeah, he doesn't live in New York City.
He's not...
No.
He doesn't live in New York City?
No, he doesn't.
Oh. So Lowen was able to pull herself together and make it to this meeting with her literary agent slash ex-boyfriend slash ex-FWB slash...
Their relationship was complicated.
So Lowen makes it to this meeting unaware of the offer being proposed, and I could build some suspense here, but for brevity's sake, I'll just get on with it. The man who helped her in the bathroom is responsible for the offer. His wife, famous thriller author Verity Crawford, was recently in a car accident that left her incapable of completing her series, and so he wants Lowen to finish her. I mean the series. He wants her to finish the series. Lowen eventually accepts this offer. She was hesitant at first because she didn't think she was capable. Also, her mother had died recently and she had been her caretaker, which in the end left her with very little money. What I'm trying to say is, Lowen essentially didn't have a choice and she was on her way to Vermont to research the unfinished series before she could even finish saying Verity. Shortly after her arrival, Lowen finds Verity's unfinished autobiography, and though she isn't there for the autobiography, she can't help but read it, which, relatable. But what begins as a cryptic yet innocuous manuscript turns into a confession of murder. Let's rewind a little bit. The book weaves between the current story and the autobiography, so Verity's deepest, darkest secrets aren't revealed right away. Lowen makes more and more revelations the longer she spends in Vermont, one of those revelations being the feeling she has for Jeremy, Verity's husband and the man who offered her the position. As their relationship grows, however, odd things keep occurring. The unease in this novel is actually crafted quite well, with Lowen catching glimpses of Verity standing and staring at her, and with Jeremy's son saying that he spoke with his mom when she's not supposed to be able to speak. It makes you wonder at times if something paranormal is going on here, right? Is it the house? Is it Verity? Is it Jeremy? Is it all three? These occurrences ramp up as the autobiography does, and it's this steady progression of suspense that keeps the pages turning. Let's jump ahead. Towards the end of the autobiography, Lowen discovers that Verity killed one of her children after the accidental death of one of her other children. She constantly had disturbing thoughts and constantly attempted disturbing things, and this was all bookended with details of her whirlwind sex life with Jeremy, and I couldn't even begin to describe how dark the manuscript got. I don't even feel comfortable going into details. It just feels wrong. If you want to know, if you haven't read the book and you're still watching this, you're just gonna have to read it if you want to find out the dirty details, because I am not gonna give them to you today. With all that being said, you're probably thinking, Lowen shared this manuscript with Jeremy right away, right? Right? No, she didn't. She didn't. It isn't until she's sure Verity is faking her injuries that she shares the manuscript with Jeremy. Also, he caught her in a position that looked like she was trying to kill his supposedly defenseless wife, so it wasn't a good look for Lowen, so she had no choice but to share the manuscript with him. Jeremy learns what his wife had done and is furious and deeply wounded. He convinces her to drop the charade by threatening to contact the police. When she concedes, he begins strangling her. Lowen stops him. Jeremy convinces Lowen that she must die, and so they form a plan that will make her death seem like an accident. Together, they kill Verity and live happily ever after. Kind of. Lowen makes money off of Verity's series and her Jeremy and Jeremy's son move. Oh, also, Lowen is pregnant now with Jeremy's child. Anyway, as they are cleaning out the Vermont house, Lowen finds a letter written by Verity for Jeremy. Turns out, the autobiography was just a writing exercise suggested to Verity since she wrote thrillers. I think I'm gonna read from my script again because it's just a lot to condense and explain, and I'm afraid that if I don't read directly from my script, I'm gonna forget something, so here we go. Verity supposedly never hurt and never wanted to hurt her children, but apparently, Jeremy had found the manuscript long before Lowen was a thing, and Verity, fearing that Jeremy would never believe her, faked her impairments after he, allegedly, caused her car accident. It was all because she feared for her life, and she used the days she spent pretending to plan an escape for her and her son, an escape she would never see, because Lowen and Jeremy killed her. A pretty tidy ending, right? Wrong. See, Verity, murderer or not, was a great liar. Whether it be in her fiction or in real life, she was a master manipulator. So, us readers are left with one very perplexing question. Which truth was she manipulating? Now, I know that was all simplified, but I wanted to provide a summary in case it's been a while since you've read the novel. Also, it's a refresher for me because I finished it like 2 weeks ago and I have a tiny brain. So with that being said, I wanted to give my rating for the book because I will be detailing why I gave it said rating for the rest of the video. So, ready? Drum roll, please. 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm going to start by making a necessary disclaimer. Writing is subjective. Bad writing for me may be excellent writing for someone else, and vice versa. For example, I think Carmen Maria Machado and Vij Suave are writing gods, whereas David Foster Wallace, who a lot of people love, I
hate his stuff.
He's just not my cup of tea. Sue me. The point I'm trying to make with this tangent is that just because I don't find someone's writing amazing doesn't make that person a bad writer. I've said it before and I'll say it again. My goal is to never discourage someone from writing. The more writers, the better. So, go write, girl. Colleen Hoover. I'll say this. Girl really knows how to tell a story, but I never found her to be a strong writer. For example, the ant was alone, fluttering left and right, up and down, searching for food and friends. He seemed confused by his solitude, or maybe he was excited for his newfound freedom. I couldn't help but wonder why he was alone. Ants usually travel with an army. The fact that I was curious about the ant's current situation was a clear sign I needed to leave my apartment. Were you really were you really thinking that? I mean, it's It's an ant. I know I'm being too picky here, but for some reason that minuscule section read so absurd to me that I made a mental note to include it in this analysis. Like, I remembered it as I read the rest of the novel and a week after finishing it. And I know that's just one example, and of course there were other parts that just didn't land with me, but as I said earlier, the progression of suspense makes it easy to continue reading. So in the end, no biggie. I went back and forth on whether or not I should include this critique in the writing portion of the video, so just know as I continue that the two overlap. This book would have been the perfect opportunity to really lean into that dark, creepy, gothic atmosphere, and I feel like Colleen was going for that, and it was close. Like, I could pick up on it, so it was close. But it just wasn't enough. I spot the roof first as I climb the hill. Slate gray like an angry storm cloud. Dark stone works its way across the front of the house, broken only by the blood-red door, the only relief of color in this sea of gray. There's nothing wrong with this description, I just want more. How does the character feel? What is the surrounding atmosphere like? Does the house have a presence? How daunting is it? How chilling is it? Give me more than just a few sentences. Hell, give me a couple pages if you'd like. In a story like this, I feel like setting can become a character of its own, so it's okay to spend a little more time with it to really develop it. You know, I talked about how the progression of suspense kept the pages turning, so just imagine the impact setting could have had on suspense. It could have sent a chill up my spine when instead it was more of a tickle. The characters are perhaps my biggest critique because sometimes they just didn't make sense. In fact, the only character I found consistent was Verity. She freaked me out in the beginning, and she freaked me out in the end. And sure, the book could have ended pre-letter, but it's just so on par for her character to leave a curveball behind. Lowen and Jeremy, on the other hand, let me set the foundation. Lowen is anxious and awkward. She enjoys New York City, not for the social scene, but because she can go unnoticed. She is easily overwhelmed and at one point even describes herself as a bit of an agoraphobe. Then there's Jeremy, who, granted, we only see through Lowen's lens, but his actions tend to back up her view of him. He's kind and gracious, compassionate and loving, the perfect partner, if you will. So imagine my surprise when I get to the end and both Lowen and Jeremy go through with killing Verity. I could see Jeremy being so consumed by his rage that he doesn't know what he's doing, but Lowen breaks that spell and they take a moment to consider before still going through with it. I'm not saying that characters can't change, but the book doesn't lead me to believe that they wouldn't be the decent citizens that they are and turn Verity into the police. It honestly would have been more plausible for me if Jeremy was so consumed by his anger that he killed Verity and Lowen walked in to witness it happen. Like, what would that do for their relationship? How would that affect both of them as individuals? Would they be able to overcome the mental toll that that surely would have taken on them? A shocking ending and consistency can exist at the same time. And this is perhaps my biggest issue with the novel. You can probably tell because I'm getting a little passionate about it. There could have been more of a build-up to Lowen and Jeremy's romance. Give me all the tension.
Make me suffer.
One more thing I wanted to point out that I forgot to do while filming. If Jeremy was strangling Verity, even though they came up with a way to make her death seem like an accident, wouldn't him strangling her to the point where she was obviously about to die, wouldn't she have bruising on her neck? Taking into consideration everything that bothered me, from the occasional odd writing to the missed opportunities and questionable character decisions, I realized that these issues aren't things that would typically irk me so much. Usually I would just brush it off and focus on the story at hand, but the hype surrounding this novel set my expectations high. Sure, it got me reading, but ultimately I would consider the buzz more of a detriment than a benefit. Thanks for watching.